or not. We also look at who you need to have on your team, what training you need to offer, and what soft skills to help the junior tax professionals develop. Over the next 20 minutes, I'm going to show you a preview of the full report. We'll have a few minutes at the end to answer any questions that you may have. So, how do you find out what it takes to become a tax leader in Canada? We surveyed 100 of Canada's leading tax professionals currently working in Canada on their qualifications and education, public accounting experience, challenges, mistakes, and aspirations. We did a deep dive analysis of 100 tax leader resumes to get into the nitty-gritty of their resume and see how they present themselves. We interviewed some of Canada's top tax leaders to get their insight and advice on how they got to where they are today. These Q&As can be found in the report. A little about the respondents as some context. It was fairly close, 50-50 in gender, with most respondents being aged between 30 and 50 years. The biggest influence on their career, father, male guardian seemed to have the most impact, followed equally by partner, spouse, and direct manager. That is particularly important to remember for your rising stars on your own team. From this information, it seems clear that to be in tax, you should have a passion for it, and can be seen by 54% saying that's how they chose their career. Okay, so we set out to be able to define the path to success for an aspiring leader in tax. Whilst we can't say there is one single path to success, when we sat down to look at all of the results in the survey and the resume analysis, a couple of key themes kept coming through. We asked ourselves this question: what are the key abilities a tax leader must accumulate during his or her career to be given the best chance of success? And that is exactly what we have to share with you today. The most succinct way of describing the path to a tax leadership role is technical skills first, then learn the business. Based on which skills respondents said were most important at each stage of their career, we created this career path showing how the role changes. So when you're starting out, you need to get a very broad range of technical experience and ensure you meet the everyday business needs of the organization. As you move beyond this stage, maybe becoming a team lead, but certainly taking on more responsibility, you must develop your communication and people skills, as well as beginning to understand how to align tax with overall business needs. As you reach director level and above, your success is defined by your contribution as a strategic partner within the organization. Essentially, your ability to contribute towards the achievements of the goals of the organization. Let's look at each of the 3 career stages in turn, starting with developing crucial technical skills. Probably the most important early experience is how much time you spend in public accounting. As part of our resume review, we looked at this specifically and found that most Canadian tax leaders spent 10 years in public accounting and more than 4 years with one of the Big Four. Of the leaders surveyed, 65% spent 6 years or more in public accounting, and the same amount said that tax professionals needed at least 6 years in public accounting to reach senior leadership. We've seen far too many candidates try to shorten their time in public accounting and reach the next stage in their career, but all the technical groundwork needed for senior level roles is developed while in public accounting. We also asked our tax leaders which designations they saw as being imperative. 71% said that the CPA was the most imperative designation or qualification, with CA coming in second at 38%, which is still in line with the 71% since the merging of the CA, CGA and CMA. As I said, we've done 6 of these reports now, and I find it interesting that 44% of tax leaders say their technical skills got them their role. In most of these surveys, personality fit is even higher than it is here, and this really shows the importance of those technical skills as a base to your whole career. Personality fit is still crucial, but it's equal to technical skills, not substantially more important. Okay, on to the second career stage, becoming a tax advocate. What does that mean? Being a tax advocate is moving beyond the technical to advocate for tax in your clients and peers, making sure that they understand and care about tax's role in the business. The first part of becoming a tax advocate is developing your communication skills. Don't take my word for it. I've pulled out a great quote here from Rob Dinser, who's the VP of Tax at Rogers. He says, "If you can't communicate with different people and roles, then you won't be able to combine knowledge and information to find solutions." When asked to rank the most soft skills in their tax, leaders overwhelmingly rated communication skills as one of the most important aspects of their role. Communication and interpersonal skills are crucial for working with different stakeholders, being able to clearly communicate concepts in terms that non-tax experts can understand. A second part of being an effective communicator is listening. Almost all tax leaders said they are open to new ideas. Listening to stakeholders, including clients, peers, and team members, will ensure better outcomes. At this stage of tax leaders' career path, we are starting to see less time spent on developing technical skills and more time spent on the soft skills like communication and relationship management. The second component of becoming an effective leader is building and managing your professional relationships. This is not just about team management, but also about building relationships with stakeholders, which will be crucial for career progression. As tax professionals move into people management roles, we can see here that most take a friendship-based approach, meaning they are compassionate and build relationships with their staff as opposed to being strictly focused on the allocation of work. Your team is your support system. 80% of tax leaders say their team's overall ability was important in helping them achieve their current role. So not only invest in your people management skills, but your team members as well. I couldn't put it better than Melody Chu, Partner Financial Services at PwC. You are only as good as your team, so you need to invest time into them and into yourself so you have the ability to mold and develop them effectively. But it's not only your internal relationships that matter. You should also be reaching out to your external network. 80% of tax leaders say it is very to extremely important to network within the tax community. Getting feedback from the tax community on challenges or receiving feedback from mentors is important to help you grow as a tax professional. To obtain the next steps in your career path, at this stage, reach out and develop relations with other functions in the business. By opening and maintaining a relationship between functions, you will develop a better understanding of those areas and help other function leaders develop an understanding of tax. Moving on to the final stage of your mid-level career and looking back at our original career path, you can see that most important aspects in this stage is providing solutions to goals of the business. So what does this mean? Basically, find out how tax fits in with the business as a whole. Tax has developed into a more integral part of the business, which is why over half tax leaders, 63%, place commercial understanding in the top 3 characteristics needed in a director or executive position. Mid-career is where the understanding starts. The career step from management to senior management and then from senior management to director is rated as one of the most difficult transitions to make. Getting their understanding as early as possible will help you make that transition. I have a quote on this topic from Olga Lantuk, the VP Tax at Swiss Reinsurance Company Limited. She said, "Financial institutions are complex and diverse. Understanding those complexities will help you manage risk and make much better decisions. Once you can communicate tax complexities, have relationships with your team, peer, and other stakeholders, and are able to align tax with the business needs, you will be able to advocate for better tax policies and decisions and will be well prepared for the next stage in your career. So, you're ready to move to the final career stage, becoming a strategic partner. It's easy to say, be a strategic partner, but how do you make this happen? From our analysis, we see 3 clear steps to becoming a strategic partner. Number 1, build a strong internal and external network. Tax professionals cannot operate in a vacuum. Your decision will overlap finance, legal, and compliance, but beyond that, the function can have a significant impact on the overall business results. For this to be fully realized, silos must be broken down, and you need to build an internal profile as a trusted advisor. Number 2 is provide solutions to meet organizational goals. Your depth of tax knowledge is crucial for early decision making, but once you're a business leader, you need to understand how tax fits into the rest of the business. If you're moving into industry, you need to have a holistic understanding of the organization so you know how tax processes and policies impact other parts of the business. Almost 1 in 5 tax leaders said their focus on small details was a weak point. Being able to step back and see how tax fits into overall business strategy is necessary for helping develop that strategy. And number 3, be seen as a strategic partner. Finally, once you understand how tax can be a business driver, then you'll be able to help and create direct to company's financial strategy. Tax is no longer the siloed transactional function it once was. More and more companies are recognizing that it can be a critical part of the financial strategy. You can be part of that re-imaging of the function by earning a seat at the table for creating and implementing strategy. Okay, that is everything on the preview of the report. I'm going to finish off with some recommendations and then just a reminder that we do have time for questions at the end. Please do send them through on the chat function to your Hayes host. I'll start with recommendations for candidates. Develop deep technical knowledge. There is no way to start your career without deep technical knowledge, and maintaining this knowledge throughout your progression is critical. Technical knowledge is one of the main traits tax leaders seek for their teams, and while soft skills become more important later, you need that foundation of knowledge and expertise to build a career. Invest time in your professional development. Don't skimp on your own development to try to rush to the next stage. We see many mid-level tax professionals trying to move from firm to industry early on, which hinders their later progression. It is also important to maintain your industry credentials and to stay on top of new legislation and other developments. Build your network. In industry, it's not uncommon to be a solo tax person or part of a small team. Build your network of tax peers to stay in the loop and learn how other organizations are managing similar issues to yours. Don't neglect internal networks. Get to know the leaders in your company and how your role impacts them. This will be an advantage for progressing to senior levels and for building your own business understanding. And for employers, the recommendations are: first of all, prioritize soft skills. While technical knowledge is crucial, soft skills become increasingly important as tax professionals progress, so don't neglect this area when assessing candidates or training employees. Support your employees' education. Training and development has twofold benefits. It is a critical retention tool, especially if you can't offer immediate career progression. It also enables you to develop internally and skills you need on your team in management and in senior leadership. Build your employer brand. Do financial professionals want to work for your organization? We find employers often focus their employer brand on operations and business development roles, leaving potential corporate service candidates out in the cold. Make sure you're building an employer brand that will attract top financial candidates, including tax professionals, to ensure you get the best applications to choose from. Okay, that is the end of the recommendations we want to share with you today. Thank you very much for dialing in and listening. I hope you found it useful and you got at least 1 or 2 constructive ideas from this. We now have a few minutes to spare to answer any questions that you have. If you have a question, please type it into the chat box and we will do our best to answer it. We have Rebecca Coleman on hand, who leads our tax business in Toronto, here to help me with the answers. As we're waiting for questions, to request a copy of the full report, please go to hayes.ca/DNA-tax. You can see that on your screen now. As I said at the start, the full report will be released after today's webinar. So let's have a look and see what questions we have. Okay, I've got a few coming in here. So I'm going to pass this over to Rebecca. The first question is, if I have someone who is very good at their job and they want to progress, but they don't seem suited to leading a team, what should I do?
Hi everybody, Rebecca here. I just wanted to answer these couple of questions that have come in. So just the question in terms of someone who is very good at their job and wants to progress, but they don't seem suited to leading a team, what do I do? So generally, you know, what I've seen from hiring managers and generally what I see from candidates in terms of this type of situation is the best thing to do. A lot of people find when they get stunted in their job, they want to maybe just leave, and ultimately, I don't think that's the best route to take. Essentially, really, it's about looking really at where you're currently standing within your own position. If you want to progress, but you feel that you don't seem to be moving forward in that, I'd really have a conversation with your hiring manager about, you know, a truthful conversation about what are the areas are lacking, and ultimately, you know, what you can do about developing those soft skill sets or technical skills so that you can move forward. I find a lot of times with candidates when they have an issue, sometimes the elephant in the room is they might be pushed into compliance, for example, moving away from planning or moving away from other areas that they want to do, which might be down to a soft skill set that the partner can see. So ultimately, it's about having a real honest conversation with yourself, seeing really where your flaws lie and what you feel that you're strong and good at, and what you need help on your weaknesses, and really work with your current hiring manager to resolve those types of situations. I think just leaving your job and trying to get a new job based on what you're looking for can really be detrimental, because really a lot of hiring managers in the marketplace will be able to sense the weakness or something that's wrong in your interview, which really doesn't do much for your self-esteem. So my advice to that person would be, if they want to lead a team but they feel that there's a lack there, that really work with your current hiring manager about eradicating those areas that you feel are weak and then moving forward within your current role. Because ultimately when you get and overcome those areas, then really you're in a really great strong place to then find a new position. So that's that one there.
Okay, we've got a few other questions coming in here. The next question is, how do I build my network in a new city?
So this is something that's really, this is actually an interesting question, because this is really what I get a lot of. I mean, you've so many people. I'm Irish. Obviously, I came to Canada 3 years ago. So ultimately, I do feel for a lot of people who have moved to Canada. They don't have any domestic experience, and they're literally trying to start again. So, you know, how to build a network in your new city is in terms of like joining associations, LinkedIn groups, connect with your peers, really, you know, use your co-workers and your peers as much as possible. The biggest advice I can give you is, you know, don't be afraid of LinkedIn. If you have no experience or little experience within the domestic market in Canada, you know, take it upon yourself to kind of reach out to those hiring managers on LinkedIn and let them know who you are and what you're trying to do. Ultimately, the problem that we have is a lot of companies, etc., won't really use the likes of Hayes for people with very little experience. Why would they need to? So I think it's really about taking the initiative and really kind of standing in your own power and reaching out to those guys on LinkedIn directly and really creating a momentum for yourself. I'm just getting another question in here. This is actually an important question as well. I left public accounting after 5 years, but now my career progression is slower. What can I do to get back on track? Do I need to go back? I think the big thing is about, like, it depends on really what you're trying to do with your career. And a lot of the times when I talk to candidates, you know, they want to get out of firm and they want to join industry, you know, and they want to do X, Y, and Z. But I think sometimes it's really about deciding what's your objective. I think from the report that we've seen today, you know, VPs and directors are trying to let us know, you know, 10 years ago, a tax director was very much compliance-based, and now they add much more value. So now it's about saving a company money. It's a role really that has created a very much a niche speciality for a company. And that's changed a great deal for a senior tax manager or a director in the market because they command much more in their salaries. It's much more of a complex job. And on the downside of that, it means there's huge demands now for a tax director to save that company money. So ultimately, I would say is if your career progression has slowed down, maybe you need to look at what is it that you're trying to do with your career. I mean, if you're trying to become a senior tax manager or director, that's your goal in life, you need to stay in firm. You know, nobody really should be leaving firm until at least their 4th year. You know, if you leave before that, really, you haven't really developed your skills as being an exceptional researcher, or, you know, in terms of memos. You know, and a great director in the market or a great senior tax manager in the market, 25% of their experience will be those core tax skills, but 75% is that intuitiveness, that experience in knowing where to be able to find things. And that's really what you're trying to do as an exceptional tax leader. As Louisa had explained, a tax leader today wears lots of different hats. They're able to communicate with lots of different types of people. They're able to add value to an organization. And the only way really you can do that is in firm. You're exposed to a lot more. You're working to tight deadlines. You're seeing a lot more. And tax today is about being up to date with what's going on all the time. So for a person who's decided to leave public accounting after 5 years, and now everything's slowed back down for them, they're out in industry and, you know, they're wondering what they should do. First question is, what are you trying to be? You know, if it's a case that you want to be a senior tax analyst out in the industry or tax manager for the rest of your life, well then, you know, we can certainly look about developing yourself into another industry role. But ultimately, most firms will look at you within 3 to 4 years if you've left firm. If you've stayed any longer than that, really you're more obsolete for firm. And I would suggest if you want to be a senior tax manager or you want to be a director, those skill sets, which is not just about tax, it's about a lot of different other things, they're back in firm, unfortunately. And really that's really where you craft your skill set and you craft yourself as an exceptional leader, in terms of all the things that we've talked about today, in terms of business partnerships, in terms of soft skill set, in terms of managing people, and then in terms of that technicality. So really you're a rock star in the market when you have all these things, and really you need a firm to give you those things. So I hope that's kind of helped that person there. We have another question. How do I differentiate myself from other top tax leaders? Most of the time when I have a tax director or a VP of tax position on, really it's about moving away from tax. And really it's about the core skills, yes, will be necessary for the job, but really the elements to a top tax leader and how you differentiate yourself from a top tax leader is really down to your soft skill set. It's down to how you think. You know, it's not just about, you know, when you're looking at a company or, you know, when you're working in your current company, what else are you doing within that company? I mean, are you getting to know the other departments? Do you know what the business is buying? Are you know, it's really about becoming a business leader. And that's how you differentiate yourself from other tax leaders, is you're not just a tax guy. You're wearing lots of different hats, finance, legal, treasury, and so forth. You're an all-rounder. And those type of people, when I meet them, they're very evident to see in how they communicate with me, in how they live their day to day, in terms of the way that they work with their team, in terms of how collaborative they are, and ultimately the fact they're able to look at the bigger picture. They're able to look at everything outside tax, and that really makes a great tax leader, and that will define you from your peers at interview stage. Is there one more question there? Yeah, we have. How do you hire or train for soft skills? So I think at the end of the day, soft skills is always a very subjective it's a very subjective word. It's very hard to tell a person to have great soft skills. I mean, at the end of the day, you are who you are. But my advice, you know, when we say kind of train and hire for soft skill sets, I think when it comes to hiring for a soft skill set, it's really about behavioural testing, I think, in one way to test. I think a lot of folk do not interview when it comes to interview stage. They might have an interview with the senior manager and with the VP, and that's it. And ultimately, I think that's the wrong way to go about it. I think there should be formal interviews with many of the other people on your team. I think really it's about, you know, it's a collaborative attempt to understand if this person is for your group or not. When it comes to training for soft skill set, you know, I think that's a hard thing to say. I think, you know, I think it's wrong to say you should train your soft skill set. I think at the end of the day is you are who you are, and you know, the personality that you have is the personality that you have. I think at the end of the day, it's really about being honest with yourself. It's really about saying, right, what are my great skill sets? I've met so many tax professionals who may not be exceptionally strong in the communication or in the business partner side of things, but they're unbelievably exceptional tax accountants. And rather maybe following the herd of, you know, well, this is what everybody else is doing, I should be doing this too. I think really you should have an honest conversation with yourself to say, you know what, I'm an awesome compliance manager. I'm incredible at provisions. I'm brilliant at calculations. I'm very good support to a director. And that's my goal, and that's really where I'm going to be exceptional at. Because I think if you're on the right track of something that you know is, I think if you're on the right track and you know that you're very, very good at something, you'll always be successful at it, and the money will always come because you'll be the best in the market at what you particularly do. So I think you can't train for a soft skill set. I think it's just really about stepping out of your comfort zone, networking, developing your personal development, and ultimately as well, like working with people to gain a better understanding of yourself, and that's ultimately what's going to make you brilliant as a tax leader. I think that's the last question that we have. Hopefully that helped you. What we can do is send out obviously a copy of the DNA to everybody that's involved today, and also if you have any questions yourself on that you'd like to ask me personally, please send me an email. There's no problem at all in terms of any type of market information I can give you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. And just to finish off there, thank you everyone for joining us today for the initial findings of the report. Just a reminder that in order to get your copy, please do send us a request through to the hayes.ca/DNA-tax address, and we'll get those out to you promptly. And indeed, do check out the other DNA reports if you think that these might be of interest to anybody else in your peer group or in your organisation. There's lots of different areas that are covered. Thank you once again.